In this video, we'll learn about the fictional worlds that are attached to many games, video games in particular. The ideas here are based off of the book Half Real by Jesper Juul, who's written a ton of fantastic books that help us to understand and analyze games, specifically video games. By definition, all games have rules. Many games also have a fictional world attached to them. When we talk about fiction in the context of a game world, it's different from storytelling, and we can help to illustrate this difference with the two graphics here on the right. On top, we've got the painting A Sunday Afternoon on the Island of La Grande Jatte by Georges Seurat, and on the bottom, we've got the final scene from Mission Impossible 2. So the painting on top represents a fictional world. And while we could make some assumptions based off of prior knowledge of the context that this painting was made in, there is no discrete story attached to it. Contrast that to Mission Impossible 2, which, while it looks pretty similar to Georges Seurat's painting, contains a fictional world where there's also a story. So the movie lays out a concrete sequence of events that portrays to us what the story was. So in games, especially digital games, fictional worlds are partially described by the game itself and partially imagined in the mind of the player. And it's not hard to imagine some of the ways that a player might be cued to imagine a fictional world of a game. Things like game graphics, sounds, text in the game, cutscenes, game titles, haptic feedback like vibrations in a controller, the game rules themselves, and what the player actions map to can all help to give clues about the fictional world that a game exists in. We see some great examples of that in the game The Typing of the Dead, where the player action of typing a word correctly corresponds to the outcome of killing a zombie. That, along with the graphics, the sound, and the text prompts in the game, cue us in to build an imagined fictional world that this game exists inside of. If you've ever written a story or designed a game, you know it's impossible to describe every single detail of a fictional world. And in general, that's a good thing because some of those gaps in information will be filled in by a player based on their understanding of the real world, as well as their understanding of the genre conventions that a game exists inside of. So for example, if I'm playing a fantasy game and I encounter a witch, it's not a stretch for me to imagine that that witch might have magic powers. If we take a look at the graphic on the right here, we can see that the whole fictional world is actually larger than what's defined by the game designer through those cues we just discussed, like graphics, text, etc. Players are always going to bring in their prior knowledge about the world and about their expectations of a game to help flesh out the full fictional world. Okay, so those are just a few key characteristics of how fictional worlds operate in digital games.